Welcome to another episode of Stones Over Bones. My name's Andrew Carr, and since COVID began almost a year ago, death has been on my mind. With more and more people dying from the virus every day, I realized that we're probably experiencing the same fear and presence of death that our colonial forefathers faced multiple times throughout their lives. Smallpox, for instance, regularly swept through Boston during the 17th and 18th century, and its cemeteries are filled with people who either died from the disease or had some part to play in its story. Take, for instance, Captain John Bonner, who was buried in the granary behind this well-placed pipe. In 1722, he drew what is considered to be the oldest surviving map of Boston. If you look at the bottom left corner, the map also includes the years of smallpox outbreaks. From 1640 to 1721, it shows that Boston endured more than 6 epidemics, about once every 10 years. By 1764, Bostonians had experienced enough pandemics to know how quickly smallpox could spread throughout town, which is why the death of Joseph Buckley caused so much alarm. On January 2nd, the Boston Post-Boy reported that, quote, Captain Joseph Buckley, who has been sick of the smallpox for some days at the north part of this town, died this morning. No other person in that town has that distemper. Little did they know that Buckley would turn out to be patient zero. On January 16th, the Boston Post-Boy reported the smallpox is now but in 3 families in this town, at the widow DeMett's, Mr. Benjamin Adams, and Mr. Thomas Anderson's. Regrettably, Mr. Benjamin's wife Abigail did not survive, and she now rests forever in Copp's Hill. When she first showed symptoms of the disease, her house on Fish Street was placed under a strict quarantine order. A red flag was hung outside to warn people to stay away, and a guard was stationed by the door with strict orders to forbid entry. On the night of Abigail's death, however, the watchman stationed outside, John Gray, left his post and went into the infected chamber, where a nurse witnessed him rub paper on the corpse's arm. After a subsequent investigation, Gray was found guilty of malicious intent to spread the infection throughout the city and served 3 months in prison. By March of 1764, Gravedigger Thomas Williston was a busy man. So many people were dying from smallpox that he was ordered to follow a new set of burial procedures. According to the town selectmen, anyone who died of smallpox should immediately be put into a tarred sheet and buried the same evening between 9 and 10 o'clock, without the usual solemnities of a funeral. Similar attempts were made to combat the virus. One of the earliest can be traced back to 1677, when smallpox treatments were printed by the ingenious John Foster, whose grave is now displayed at the MFA. Although this broadside is famous for being the first medical treatise published in America, its suggestion of drinking warm beer and eating boiled apples probably didn't save too many lives. A far better idea came about in 1738, when city selectmen voted to turn Mr. Benjamin Clough's residence into a quarantine hospital. Today, his remains reside in King's Chapel, but in 1738 he lived on the sparsely populated Beacon Hill, the perfect location to isolate the infected. Others were shipped to the newly built hospital on Ransford Island, located just outside of Boston Harbor. The most effective solution to fighting smallpox, however, was introduced 17 years earlier in 1721. Cotton Mather's reputation will forever be tainted by his involvement in the Salem witch trials, but many people forget that he was directly responsible for introducing the concept of inoculations to America. In 1716, Mather read an account of inoculations being successfully performed in Turkey by Dr. Emmanuel Timonius. This innovative process involved extracting a small sample of pus from a smallpox patient and mixing it with the blood of someone healthy. That person would then develop a mild case of smallpox, which the body would grow immune to. Years earlier, in 1707, Mather discovered that his slave had undergone a similar procedure in Africa. When an outbreak occurred in 1721, Mather felt it was time to test this procedure. He sent letters to every physician in Boston, but only one bothered to respond. That man was Dr. Zabdiel Boylston, now buried at the Walnut Street Cemetery in Brookline. Dr. Boylston was a renegade, known for performing risky surgeries like lithotomies and mastectomies. When he learned of the procedure from Mather, he decided to attempt the experiment himself. On June 26, 1721, trusting a procedure performed halfway around the world, he inoculated his 6-year-old son Thomas, his slave Jack, and Jack's son Jackie. As expected, they all survived. Rather than embrace this scientific breakthrough, many Bostonians were outraged. Both Boylston and Mather were verbally abused in the streets and condemned by the press. People believed they were spreading smallpox to healthy people and labeled them as murderers. To give you a sense of how explosive this topic became, on November 14th at 3 o'clock in the morning, someone threw a homemade bomb through the window of Cotton Mather's bedroom with a threatening note attached. "Cotton Mather, you dog, damn you. I'll inoculate you with this, with a pox to you." Luckily, the grenade fizzled out and no one was hurt. Although city selectmen ordered Boylston to stop, he continued to inoculate hundreds of willing participants and published his results in 1724. 2 years later, he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society, an honor he proudly displayed by FRS on the top of his grave. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this channel and would like to support future videos, feel free to leave a donation below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit those funeral bells for new content.